Hello there. I should be streaming into your ears live from York in Yorkshire. Actually, it's not in Yorkshire technically, is it? It's because the change in unitary authorities in the anyway. Episode 177, everyone. It's any of the new HS2 East and leg options good. We're going to be talking about HS2. In fact, we're going to be picking through 3 bits of HS2 stuff. We're going to be picking through firstly the government's response to the integrated rail plan. The government's response to the Transport Select Committee's report on the integrated rail plan for the North and the Midlands is a little bit of a mouthful. Anyway, that was on the 13th of July. On the 17th of July, they published, the DfT published its HS2 to Leeds study terms of reference. We're going to pick through that, and then lastly, we will be looking at. Actually, you know what I need to get? I need to get my... Where's my whack? Get the Wacom out. Lastly, we will be looking at... Oh, it's chaos on my desk. There's too much stuff going on. We will be looking at this report by SLC Rail 4, HS2 East. So the last one is this one. This is the last one by HS2 East, which is looking at jumping the gun and trying to do some alternative potential ways to deliver something that that might approximate what HS2's Eastern leg was supposed to do. Is it any good? Who knows? Because we're going to look at all 3 of these after a bit of news in tonight's Rail Letter. Everyone, welcome to the show. And as the Intercity 225 fades away, disappearing from our view, we start with some slightly shocking news from NCE. Sorry, Gareth, that YouTube has been freezing for you. Not me, Gareth. Other Gareth. There are lots of Gareths who watch the show, as well as those who host it. More than 500 network rail structures have not been examined in over 5 years. So, to some extent, some of this is par for the course. There's always a circle of or a cycle of structures that aren't looked at. But there is some worrying detail about a backlog. So there are about 70,000 structures the network rail has to maintain and inspect, and there are various. Some structures are examined more frequently than others, depending on their risk. What risk they present to the railway. Things like age, materials used, overall condition, location approximate to other things. But it's worth picking up. Go to NCE's website and pick up this story and have a look to see what you can see to pick out on this, because there's the Office of Rail and Road are not happy with the and this has been true for a while, not happy at the rate for multiple years, the growth of the backlog in inspections. So, Network Rail is just fundamentally on the back foot on this stuff, and it doesn't help when it's told to reduce headcount, and it's just not focusing on what it's supposed to be doing. It's focusing on constant focus on reshuffles and this and that, and not focusing on cost and efficiency rather than focusing on maximizing what it can deliver. Because if the aim of your game is just efficiency for efficiency's sake, that's no good. If the aim of your game is efficiency in order that you can catch up with a backlog, that starts making more sense. But if the efficiency is just so that you can spend less money, that doesn't necessarily make a huge amount of sense. It's also difficult it's a difficult target to chase. Anyway, so best of luck to the inspection teams. But for example, I don't know why it's not something that's in-house. I don't know why the contractor that does all the inspections doesn't make any sense. It should just be an in-house team. That would save money. There are quite a few other things that just don't make sense in the way that structural inspections are done. Let's see. A story to keep an eye on, that one. Another story that's interesting. Henry Mance for the FT has written an interesting column looking at some interesting data, actually, and looking at... I just got a phone call from Floodline. Presumably somewhere in York is about to flood. Yes, looking at the fact that there is... In fact, I can tell anyone in the York area, is that the River Foss has just had a flood alert issued. Not surprised. I was outside. There's a lot of water in it. Anyway, Lynn Manfu saying efficiency that exists to save money sounds like a long way of saying cuts. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, sorry. Cheap batteries are bad news. Basically, Henry's been doing some number crunching and has discovered that actually it's not high quality batteries that are going pop and bursting into flames at an incredible rate. It's cheap import batteries. So make sure that the batteries you're using are of a high quality. Just make sure you source high quality, good batteries. Don't get cheap batteries. Lindsay Broadwell, someone to pay attention to on this sort of thing. But yeah, there's lots of battery fires, and pretty much all of them are kind of third party batteries, not. It's a good column. It's a good piece. Go and have a read. There's a little thread. Henry did a thread on it as well. You can go and read. Portugal has introduced a €49 monthly national rail pass, allowing them unlimited travel on regional rail services from yesterday, actually, from August the 1st. When is yesterday? Yeah, yesterday, August the 1st. It's exciting. So, more countries introducing big, Klima ticket style passes. Excellent. Good stuff. Right, here we go. Here he is looking... I'm so excited to be introducing all of you to the new... my pro-car policies. There he is. That is an impersonation of Rishi Sunak here. Sunak here pleading with a Spectator columnist, just one. Because he's gone full upset mode. John Stone made a very good point. The reason all this is a policy space that was created by Labour turning in on themselves over ultra-low emission zones. It created a policy space for the Tories to swing in and say, well, they're flip-flopping on that. We're asserting ourselves as being pro-car. Sunak pleads with Spectator columnist, because here he was tweeting, he wrote a Telegraph article talking about freedom sat in Margaret Thatcher's old Rover. This is his words. Earlier I spoke to the Telegraph about how important cars are for families to live their lives. It's something anti-motorist Labour don't seem to get. Anyway, it's why I'm reviewing anti-car schemes across the country. There he is. Anyway, good God at my wildly swinging back and forth Sunak impersonation. Anyway, because obviously he's now ordered this review of low traffic neighbourhoods. Mark Harper swung in with an even more stupid series of tweets about how he's massively pro car. I should have put them in there. They made me incredibly angry. In fact, I'm glad I didn't put them in here, because they'd make all of you incredibly angry as well. All of this is just Sunak pleading to Spectator columnists, but it is because Labour created a space for them to do this. If Labour had not created this space by having an in-battle after Uxbridge, then we wouldn't necessarily have seen all this stuff coming out. Meanwhile, Adam Bienkoff here pointing out that Rishi Sunak's literal family business, Infosys, boasts of its partnership with 2 of the top 5 integrated oil and gas companies, 3 of the top 4 oilfield services providers, and 5 of the top 10 upstream enterprises across the oil and gas landscape, as Rishi Sunak announced opening up all of these extra licenses for oil and gas extraction in the North Sea. Marvellous. Oh, right, okay. So we're going to park that. We're not going to dwell on that. It's kind of table stakes at this point. This government is just shredding as much as it can, as quickly as it can. So, very briefly, a bit of a content warning. Descriptions and images from rail crashes. I always put this content warning in because it's important to do so. So this is following crashes 2 years ago now in Montana. Rail crash in Montana in the US. Ross Gruter's here, well worth a follow. Union guy with the railroads. And this is kind of basically it's a situation where investigators say poor track conditions caused a derailment. It's very much like the class ones just reducing maintenance as much as they can in order to maximize the profits. Oh, funny that. Very different condition to the UK, by the way. Like, don't try and draw parallels between the US and UK railroads. It doesn't make much sense. They're two very fundamentally different systems. The reason that we have lots of problems in the UK isn't because of private profit. It just isn't. It's because of government stupidity and attempting to pretend that the rail is a private. Whereas in the US, it's very much you have big railroad companies that are trying to make as much profit as they can whilst destroying everything. Don't draw parallels. I'm phoning me again. I'm guessing because there's another bit of the Foss now flooding? Question mark. Anyway, maybe they've downgraded it. Anyway, it's all good fun. So, right, let's talk about small station architecture. Captain Viridian is saying, I went to Portugal earlier this year and they're doing great things with their railroads. Oh, nice. Yeah, thanks. Good to know. Right, let's talk about Thanet. Michael C, are you here? Hello, Michael C. We might get a Thanet update at some point soon, but anyway, I've got a couple of things to say about Thanet Parkway. Firstly, it's fine. We're talking about architecture. If you're wondering why this image, I normally make a point of framing and centering images and filling the screen with them. Because someone did it. I've gone and lost the original tweet actually, but it's fine. Someone was saying there was moaning about the architecture. Now, yes, architecturally, I would describe what we're seeing here as back of a high street. It's not very good. And it's fine architecturally. It's fine, but it's just that it's fine. There's all this space here. What's this doing here? This is, it's. The problem we have here is that this station has been seen as a station in isolation. This should be a community space. There should be There should be buildings here with a shop, a coffee shop, or at least a little independent shop stall. If we saw the railways as part of communities, then we would have ideally a low business rate, low lease cost, independent shop kind of spot here. Instead, it's sterile. It's missing. Yeah, these doors just sort of been in the side, and this huge expanse. Again, waste. If you've created a tower, do something with it. Now, someone did a sketch. I don't agree with this. No, I don't think it might look nice, but I don't agree with it. Like, yes, I do agree with the idea of putting a clock tower in. Frankly, like this, clearly, you could put do extend this up, and do put a clock on it like that. That would make some sense. It wouldn't have to be, it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be this snazzy thing. Or snazzy. It doesn't have to be. We don't have to hark back and do pastiches of the past. It doesn't have to be this sort of faux Italianate stuff. We don't have to do that. Although I do agree with the fact that it's missing canopies on the station platform, because this is a bit bleak, as we'll point out in pictures. It doesn't have to be like we can do modernist architecture. It can be a contemporary bit of architecture. It doesn't have to hark to the past. But at platform level, bus and train user Roger pointing out, this is a bit. Firstly, I'm not convinced about accessibility-wise. I'm not convinced this is the right thing to have done here, because you've got a vertical barrier that someone who's partially sighted or blind could be following with their hand. I think this is actually a problem on what is. I know it's this allegedly this is 2.5 meters, which is compliant. This is compliant. 2.5 meters apparently, right? That's compliant width. I would argue a couple of things. Firstly, that's the minimum in the standard. It's quite clear that the effect of having this high barrier is to create the feeling of this being narrower than it actually is. Also, once you account for the tactiles and you've got the new kind of bright tactile paving, and you've only got this little stretch left, this patch here, which is probably about a meter tops, 1200 mil maybe, for a wheelchair whizzing along there. Firstly, there's not enough space for two wheelchairs to pass. So, 2.5 meters, a reminder, is the bare minimum standard. It's also, these are not great for wheelchairs, for the front wheels on a wheelchair. They're kind of not. So, multiple thoughts on this one. I think this is like, we've done this for accessibility without actually consulting the beep necessarily, because I would suggest that someone who would normally use this in a more open space would be able to hand follow or follow their stick on the be able to trace the location of the wall on the side. So again, I'm not sure about this. And this visually narrows the platform even further. So, it feels like a very narrow space. It feels very confined. It's not great urban realm design at the platform level. I think fundamentally, though, fundamentally, this is a problem with, I think, across the UK we've got at the moment, which is steady on Graham Hareth. We cannot, consultants who are given this work just don't seem capable of designing good small stations. And I think partly the issue is that there's not enough money available, because the business case for these is always basically like, it has to be as cheap as possible, rather than think about the community. So it's not thought of as community. They don't want the additional complexity of engaging with, the local community to incorporate this into being a community space because no local authority wants to get involved because they don't have any money. There's just this conflicting. Also, this fixation with galvanized steel is a bit horrifying because it's cheap, it's easy to maintain, fine. But again, apparently this is an issue with the route asset manager not wanting to pick up anything particularly complicated. But look at all this clutter on the platform at the new Portway Park and Ride, another new station that opened the last couple of weeks. This is a mess. Why is this not incorporated into the fence? Likewise, this, and I can moan about this because this is an Arcadis design. Hopeless. Just awful. What is going on? My colleagues who worked on this, sorry folks, this is not a good station. We didn't do a good job here. We did a really bad job here, in fact. We've met the brief, but we have not delivered a railway station. This is embarrassing. And by the way, I know those of you out there, Network Rail folk out there in the architecture team, Anthony Dewar and Frank in particular, literally laughing at this design. So Network Rail know this is bad. So it's not, a lot of people pointing out it's not just consultants. The issue is, yes, there is not a good enough design brief. Costs are being, the money is the main driver. We don't, as I said, we don't need to make stuff look. We don't need to do nasty looking pastiches. I don't think this. The reason that this looks nice is partly because there's a much better use of the space out in the front. But we don't need to do pastiches to make stations look good. We have got the hub station. We did an episode on this, didn't we? We've got the hub station here, which shows, firstly, that a clock is a prominent part of the design. We can do better. We have these options. As Owen O'Neill's saying, small stations should not be. One of the ways to make it more efficient is not to do a tendered individual design every time you have a new station. Have a dedicated team who leads on this. Even if you've got a dedicated team client side, so you have a new stations team in Network Rail, but you have a dedicated team that delivers small stations, and that they're not just doing new builds, that they also go back and reconfigure existing small stations, so they always have work. So they're not just doing new stations, so they're cutting their teeth on existing stations as well. So they kind of, therefore you've justified the volume of work. That's the way to do this. And you've got all these different options here, a huge range of different options you could be using. I know this is still work in progress, but actually, Anthony and Frank, if you're listening, which you probably aren't, it'd be lovely to have you on to talk about where progress is at with these. Yeah, we talked about this back in episode 112, didn't we? Network Rail's modular design for small and medium stations. We want to see more of these, please. Absolutely. Lim Man Fu, yes, exactly. Here it is. Anyway, very frustrating. Talking of Parkway, the missed opportunity that it's Portway Park and Ride is a rubbish station name. It clearly should be Portway Parkway. Anyway, as I've titled this, that's a hugely diverse team of people here. There's a woman, and that's it. It's not very good, to be honest. Crikey, yeah, do better. There's not very good diverse mixed team involved in delivering this station, clearly. Anyway, let's move on. There's some happy news, which is that China, COSCO Shipping Development, has launched an enormous electric container ship. It's happening, folks. This is good news. It's good to have. We can't get rid of container ships overnight, or maybe we shouldn't at all, because actually it's quite an efficient way of doing stuff. Is large logistics can be efficient, and efficiency reduces energy consumption, and that's good. But also, and reduces costs for people. It's an electric boat, very good. So that we're happy with that. Lots of batteries. More of this development to come, I'm sure. Some more good news, which is that the ORR have rejected the proposal to reduce timetable finalisation to 2 months rather than 3 months ahead of service. So that means that people can have access to advanced tickets a little bit further. We should be aiming to match the aviation industry with how early we open up tickets. But obviously, the challenge with that is booking engineering works in advance. Anyway, so yeah, good. I'm pleased about this. This is good news. Let's hear about the latest about ticket office closures. Before that, I want to talk about Tourette's Hero, who has... Actually, I'm not going to talk about Tourette's Hero much. I'm just going to say, Tourette's Hero, I think this graphic you've done is really ace. I like this. About ticket office closures and the consultation. If you want to write a quick response, then this is great. Go in and, yeah. Anyway, right, so... electrifying from the port to all UK distribution centres, even better. Well, absolutely, yes, quite. Yeah, big ships use dregs of fuel, not very efficient and dirty, but yeah, exactly. We want nice electric boats. Anyway, I digress. Present and future. So ticket office is consistent, easy to sort of locate, source of information and assistance, and so obviously they're getting rid of it. Whether there's an emergency access failure or hate crime, ticket office staff can be reached quickly. Yes, they can. Not anymore. When assistance fails, as it often does, it really does, companions or other passengers can ask ticket office staff for help. No more. Rail travel is viable if imperfect means of travelling nationally for work and leisure for disabled people. Getting rid of ticket offices? Nope. It will become an unfavoured choice. So it's a really nice graphic, this. I like that a lot. Thanks very much, Tourette's Hero. Anyway, the latest news is that actually some small sliver of good news, which is the consultation's been extended. I think the response to that has been enormous. It's quite impressive, I think, how much response there's been. There's going to be a horrible, as in a very hostile response to the changes. Government obviously would ignore it anyway, but yes, it's good that it's been delayed because they can collect more responses. So get your responses to the consultation in as soon as you can. Another bit of good news, new tube trains on their way. Look, TfL's new tube trains. Okay, the windows are a bit small. I think that's for hashtag reasons. But otherwise, I quite like these. I think they look great. Look at these funny little trains. Look at these tiny little trains, little toy trains riding around on the European rail network on their way to eventually. Are they on their way to Velem? Oh no, maybe they are. Are they on their way to Velem or anyway? Oh no, they're on to Germany actually, to the German test track, Siemens's test track, and they'll reach here, the UK, London soon. It's a shame that the full project to actually deliver everything that these trains are supposed to unlock hasn't arrived. But anyway, and there is a last-minute bit of good news, fun news, which is that TfW have launched a new interactive rail map for rail travellers. And in true Blue Peter style, I'm going to bring it up because here it is. You cannot see my mouse. Actually, you know what I need to do is actually switch on my mouse because we're going to be pointing at PDFs later. So let's capture the cursor. I've received like 4 missed calls from Floodline. I think their system's broken. Look, Floodline, I'm not picking up. I'm recording. Anyway, look, it's the Aberystwyth train, and it's on its way to, where is it? It's approaching, it's 1920, it's approaching Carsus. Very nice. What's this train? There's obviously it's late because it's the Cambrian line, but it shows it's yellow, so it's all the TfW rail services, but crucially, it shows all the other services too. Look at this, it's great. It shows everything. Let's go to York. What's happening in York right now? We've got, what's going on? There's not much actually. What's that? LNER service coming in from the north and the south. That service is a TP. Oh no, it's a northern service going that way. What about Colton Junction? Let's have a look what's happening at Colton Junction. Actually, if I was stood at Colton Junction right now, there would be a Transpennine Express service from Saltburn to Manchester Airport about to pass underneath. So anyone who stood there right now will be able to see this. So yes, you just don't get the colour for the other talks. So they're all in grey, but TfW Rail shows them in a variety of traffic light colours, depending on whether it's on time or not. It's nice, isn't it? It's quite good. That's a weird service. What is that? Llandudno to Manchester Airport. Oh yeah, okay. I can understand why that's doing that. Anyway, there you go. I like that. Very nice. Good fun. So, nearly finished the news. Turkey gets a loan. UK government loving rail elsewhere. Yeah, so Turkey's getting a loan for electric railway. And what's funny about this isn't so much they're getting a loan. Okay, whatever. What's funny is that is the language they used in the press release. In fact, you can see it just under my little chyron down here, talking about like saving how many tons of CO2 equivalent a year by electrifying the railway, and that it's the best way to do it. And it's just like, oh, hypocrisy much. Again, table stakes. Right, and of course, the HS2 misery. We have to talk about the HS2 misery. 2 things of misery. One of them is this suggestion that HS2's Euston Station is going to be cut to 7 platforms. Oh, maybe cut it to 6 and then deliver the 5 other platforms later on. I'm sure that was a plan previously. I wonder. Oh yeah, that's right. The pre-IRP. Oh, in fact, the pre-Oakervie plan was that, for God's sake. And then, of course, the other thing was the fact that the IPA, the Infrastructure Planning Authority, something like that, Infrastructure Projects Authority. Anyway, the IPA rated HS2 as unachievable. To be fair, they rated a lot of other stuff as unachievable as well, including Crossrail in the past, because it had serious problems. And I would agree, HS2 is in serious trouble at the moment. We're going to talk a little bit about it, but in fact, let's talk a bit about it now by bringing up my large face. Hello, it's my large face. Of course it's unachievable. There's no plan. So I appeared on LBC speaking to Boris Johnson's sister a couple of days ago and saying, look, of course it's it's part of, there's no plan. There's no plan for what this railway's for. Why can't we understand what Euston needs to look like? Because we've no idea what the service is supposed to be. Government refuses to go, this is what HS2 is going to be as part of a broader transport plan. They refuse to paint a picture of the future without railing it. Or with rail in it, sorry. They refuse to paint a picture of the future with rail in it. They absolutely refuse to do so. Can I post a link to that map? Good point. Yes, where was it? It was Signal Box TFW. There, good. I'm about to do it now. It's about to be posted in the chat, everyone. You'll be very pleased to know. Boom. There you are. So, Graham Harth, only 7 platforms is extracting the urine. Yeah, well, indeed. Yeah, quite. Yes, it is. Jamie Potts, you are correct. It is a concerted effort to sabotage HS2 rather than just cost cut. Yeah, this is about destroying it. It's about destroying the project. That's the whole point. It's to wreck it. Yes. Anyway, talking of which, let's miniaturize my face. Put me up in the top corner. Hello, everyone. And talk about HS2. So, HS2. Here's the pre-IRP HS2. So here we are. This is pre-IRP, and then obviously we have the current proposals. Current proposals, which are smaller. We have there's the alleged discussion of the spur here, but that's just entirely up in the air. The Goulburn link is that's gone as well. So currently there's just this bit here. What else have they got rid of? They've got rid of the bit that connects up to the West Coast Main Line here. So Hansacre, that's been got rid of entirely. Just a series of very mind-blowing things. Harper is very angry. He wasn't around to cancel it, to just entirely cancel it previously. This is not. I'm not. HS2 is not perfect. I'm not going to sit here and say HS2 is a perfect project. And in fact, I've pointed out several ways in which I think even the pre-IRP proposals are not great and could be improved, and we've had a lack of vision. But let's talk about the Eastern leg. Let's talk about the options for the Eastern leg. In fact, though, before we even do that, let us talk about the government's response to the Transport Select Committee's response to the Integrated Rail Plan, which itself was a response to a series of other crap. The response to the National Infrastructure Commission's report, and so on and so on and so on. Let us have a look at this report, shall we? You can see my mouse, everyone. Good. Right. So, let's have a look. So, in italics are the recommendations, and government has made its statements underneath. So, this first one is on the Goulburn link and saying, bring back the Goulburn link basically, or you need to publish alternative plans as quickly as possible, as a minimum by March 2023. Government accepts the rationale for this recommendation, although the work required will take longer than the suggested time frame. Okay, fine. Government set out its rationale for moving Goulburn link in a written mysterious statement. No, you didn't. It was obviously electioneering by Boris to win over the chair of the 1922 committee. Let's not pretend it was anything other than a direct bit of politicking. Anyway, fine into the Union Connectivity Review. As lots of people said, the Union Connectivity Review, very good. It gave an opportunity to cut a thing and wouldn't replace it with nothing. It has been cancelled. Anyway, so it's saying, government's saying, it's not been cancelled. It's like, is anyone working on the design for it now? Because if they aren't, it's been cancelled. Government remains committed to looking at alternatives to the Goulburn link. Those alternatives including not building it, of course. Safeguarding along the link will be maintained. Fine. Okay, right. So next one. Take out changes of plan for the HS2 Eastern leg and to inform current and future decision making. DfT should publish updated BCRs. Government accepts the rationale for this recommendation. It will continue to provide updated economic assessments of HS2 at key decision points for the programme, as has been done to date. It's going to provide an updated economic assessment for the entire committed HS2 project, and that's it. They're not going to look at... so for B, the previous full proposal for the eastern leg of HS2 Phase 2B, the government notes that the Integrated Rail Plan provided an updated economic assessment for this, including assessment of wider benefits, but does not intend to provide a proportionate economic assessment alongside other options considered in the HS2 to Leeds study, which we're about to talk about. So what they're saying is, oh yeah, we see that you wanted us to look at the updated benefit cost ratio for the previous plans so that they could be fairly compared. We're not going to do that. Brilliant, thank you, government. So there's loads of just absolute gibberish in here, which we can just ignore. Levelling up, the evidence base for the IRP must be reconsidered in light of these levelling up aims. If there's a once-in-a-generation investment in rail, is not to be a missed opportunity. And then there's a load of like, yeah, but we're building this, isn't it wonderful? For HS2, there's no change to proposed outputs on the western leg. It's not actually entirely true, but anyway. For South Yorkshire, the IRP outputs for connectivity and capacity southwards are essentially unchanged. This is absolute horseshit. For the East Midlands, they're markedly better. Again, absolute horseshit, because they're no longer north-south. There's just a south-facing, London-facing link. Do not... I know some people are like, oh, the original plans were no good. The hub was the better plan. The East Midlands has a separate... a rather spread out population base that is better served by a hub station, as is the case for lots of high-speed lines everywhere across Europe. Hub station served by improved regional connectivity. Multiple stations with multiple fanning services is just not the right solution, and it's a real pig, and it's not north-facing. So that connectivity, taking the East Midlands up to Yorkshire, Leeds, the northeast, it disappears. You've lost that connectivity. They've lost that connectivity up to Scotland. Rubbish, absolute rubbish. So that's just a lie, an outright lie, as I addressed in the IRP, in the TSC, when I was speaking to them and giving them evidence. To talk about journey times, capacity substantially better than under the original HS2 East leg plan. No, that's not true. Again, capacity, they're just making the same lie that misses the point. It's about existing line capacity that's being obliterated by the IRP proposals. Compared to today, there'll be significant increased capacity. No, there won't. As I've pointed out, you are reducing the capacity on that line. Anyway, for NPR, the IRP proposals allow the same fundamental service pattern. Again, for the high-speed trains, not unlocking capacity. This is the problem with not outlining what their existing network capacity release would have looked like, because now no one cares. Government isn't paying attention to that, doesn't care. They're not talking about the potential for services that could have been running along there. So just, yeah, also, lots of other waffle. So it's a load of gibberish, basically. It's probably one of the last mentions of levelling up that government will make, this government will make, which is quite something. So they're saying, there's some stuff that was published after the IRP, so we couldn't do that analysis, except they said they'd done that analysis, except they also said in the report they hadn't done the analysis. Oh, God, what a mess. Yes, it's not once in a generation, it's once in a century. Absolutely, Owen O'Neill, you're spot on. I'm not necessarily going to go through all these, but you get the general theme. Government is basically kind of lying. We asked government to commit to supporting the redevelopment of Leeds Station. Government accepts the recommendation subject to future conclusions in the HS2 to Leeds study. That means nothing. Government must conduct its study on how best to take HS2 to Leeds urgently. It's okay, fine. That's the report. We're going to be looking at the terms of reference for them in a minute. Government should reconsider the case for development of a new station in Bradford, yada yada. Government accepts this recommendation. Government recognises the impact the rail improvements could have in helping Bradford to level up. RP committed to improving journey times as low as 12 minutes between Bradford and Leeds, part of its core pipeline. Government currently stands by the conclusions of IRP on Bradford. Okay, so basically downscoping Bradford and cutting Bradford out of the plans. But they are saying they're going to reassess the evidence for better connecting Bradford, and the case for a new station will now form part of the NPR development programme. So the team, which incidentally I was briefly working on, shout out to the team, looking at this stuff. That's it. All your plans ripped up again. Back to grip 2 again to look at this again. Bloody hell. Anyway, there's more wasted time. They should have just stuck to the original plan, aim for the 40 billion, delivered it. When it could be delivered, deliver it. Stage the work. Anyway, I'm not going to go through the rest. You get the general feeling of it all. It's very similar level. You can go and download this off the Transport Select Committee website. It's all just painfully clear that they just just neglect is how I describe it. So, what else can we learn from that? Well, let's have a look now at the terms of reference for that HS2 to Leeds study that they're referring to. So, again, you can find the terms of reference online. It's just an HTML page. It's not a PDF at this point. It's just the terms of reference. Key things that we're picking out are here, though. I want to kind of pick these. Jamie Potts, I agree with you about levelling up. It is an incredibly patronising term. So here is the scope. Again, this is going to be delivered by the NPR development team. So it's the same team doing all the NPR development. Technical work will be led by Network Rail. Yes. Support where needed from HS2 Limited. Fine. So it's going to be looking at an assessment of different options for HS2 services to Leeds, following on from work done on the strategic alternatives to Eastern Leg for the integrated rail plan. Development and assessment of infrastructure solutions at Leeds and the surrounding area to enable HS2 services, interfacing the work and development to support the services at Leeds committed to an integrated rail plan. Fine. And then safeguarding impacts, including the current Eastern Leg and any future-proofing required. Yeah, so looking at what needs to be done in terms of guarding any proposed route. So critically, these are the options. There's what's this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 options. Let's talk about these options. So option 1 is extension of HS2 Nottingham services via Newark and the East Coast Main Line route. So I have created a little map here to show what that proposal looks like. So that is the kind of the bastardized spur going up to East Midlands Park. Actually, it's kind of more like kind of this. The bastardized spur going up to East Midlands Parkway. There's going to be then the spur. Actually, it's using the existing route there to Derby. Then kind of using the existing railway into Nottingham, and then like an existing railway / new railway bit going up onto the East Coast Main Line north of Newark, and then just using the East Coast Main Line to, there's East Coast Main Line, just basically using the East Coast Main Line to go up to York and beyond, and also to get to Leeds. Leeds bit is, where is it? Leeds bit is, it's this bit, isn't it? It goes like this. That's the Leeds bit, I think, isn't it? Yes. So that means that possibly even for this bit, but certainly from here upwards, that means less capacity on the existing network capacity, because that means you're running long distance services on the existing rail network, so you're losing capacity on the East Coast Main Line there. So that's option 1. Less capacity. It involves, again, that means that Derby is completely excluded from that. Sheffield totally excluded. It's not very good. I don't think it's a very good proposal at all. It misses the point, and again, it's quite so. It's increasing journey times because you're not getting your full high-speed route. So you're increasing journey times, which means that rail is less competitive. It's not good. It's not good. So that's option 1. Let's jump back now. What's option 2? Via Sheffield. So this is spur to East Midlands Parkway. Then you get the Nottingham bit. Then up to Derby and basically just following the Midland Main Line up to Sheffield. That's basically what it's saying. So using the existing route. So you get a new fast high-speed bit up to East Midlands Parkway, and then existing railway up to Sheffield. What was it saying? It's saying, I've never heard of the extended HS2 services from Sheffield, and then basically following the existing, I presume, which route will it? It's probably doing this, and then this, and then this to Leeds, and then likewise up to there. So again, that's just an enormous amount of lost capacity. Less capacity. There we go. So reducing capacity on the existing network again. Move. Yeah. That's a good point. Rishi Sunak can't do very much at all about LTNs and other anti-car stuff because most of that's council based. So he doesn't actually have the powers he's pretending he does. So that's option 2 is via Sheffield. Let us look at option 3. Option 3 is via Manchester. Now this is a real pig. So this is that you just use whatever the NPR proposals are, which are, by the way, just basically TRU++, which is where you go from here into Leeds and then following the main line out to York. There we are. That's it. That's it. So that means not only are you reducing capacity for the fast services on this route and on HS2 from Manchester southwards, because now you're essentially doubling up the loading on the trains. The whole point of this split the whole point of the original split was that of the Y was that you had, that basically you from Brum northwards you kind of split the, you didn't have to run as intensive a service on these two sides, or rather, the loadings would be split before you get down to the kind of the really high intensity section between Birmingham and London. So the whole point was that the Birmingham London bit is like super intensive, and then these two bits are less intensive. If you're running everything down from Manchester to Crewe and through Manchester, Crewe and Birmingham, that has to get even more intensive. Also, another thing you'll note, what's happening about the East Midlands, what's happening about Sheffield, what's happening about the connectivity through Yorkshire into the East Midlands and to the West Midlands. What's happening with this? Nothing, just completely omitted. So this is option 3, which is just horrible, just absolutely hopeless. So also some of these are looking at like they're building out. Yes, some of them are looking at building a kind of a bit of new line into Leeds. So there's like a bit of the HS2 plan into Leeds will be replicated, which is funny because it's the bit that I never particularly liked anyway. So that they are doing that bit, the T, which I can understand as a cheap compromise, but it's still not ideal. So what about 4? 4 is, well, it's kind of similar. So it's as has kind of previously been discussed. You go to East Midlands Parkway, you've got the bit to Derby, a bit to Nottingham, and then you get the bit going up the old road into, I think possibly using some of this to get into Sheffield, and then like also continuing on and going up to Leeds, and then also doing something to get to, probably just doing this to get up to York. Again, rubbish, because it's all, apart from this bit, this bit, which is new, and like maybe a bit up here that's new, this is all existing rail network, so it's more reduction of capacity of service for existing services and any future new services on the existing network. So, just ugh. So that's option 4. What's option 5 though? Oh yeah, it's the full eastern leg. Now, option 5. So broadly, they say broadly. So I have a suspicion that they would continue to use East Midlands Parkway. I don't agree with East Midlands Parkway because it's not. In a way, you could argue that East Midlands Parkway is a better option because it's closer to Leicester, and so it's a fairer connection between Leicester and Derby and Nottingham. So you could perhaps say that's a better option, East Midlands Parkway as an East Midlands station. I'm willing to sort of, okay, I prefer Towton because it was halfway between Derby and Nottingham, and Leicester could be served differently, but maybe East Midlands Parkway becomes the East Midlands hub station for the future. Fine. Then you go basically following the previous route, which was not like that, actually. It was like up to Leeds and then obviously with the bit going up to York, and fine. With a bit that goes like that because the plans are a bit stupid. So, okay, fine. The good thing about this is it's new, as we discussed, new infrastructure, so you get the capacity relief. That's the point of HS2, is capacity relief on the existing network. Yes. And there might be some, as others are pointing out, like the Erewash Valley is not hugely busy. You could potentially do something along there, but it's quite restrictive in terms of route. Also, it kind of hems you in terms of what you do around Sheffield and kind of coming through there. It's not as clean. I will show you what I think the final high-speed rail network should look like in a future rail natter. What is the ideal high-speed rail network for the UK? We'll get there eventually. We'll look at that. It's a fun episode that we have to really spend some nice time and get right. And hopefully, if Bentley accept my request to give me a free microstation license, I'll be able to actually show you in CAD rather than in Google Earth, because that'll make my life and your lives a lot easier as well. So this is option 5 is restore the eastern leg as previously proposed, which was a messy compromise, but it delivered the capacity release and the journey times that are labelled that modal shift. So that's with quarter of an hour left. That's the sort of proposal. Let's now talk about what HS2 East partnership have come up with. This is HS2 East. HS2 East is kind of like just a collection of local authorities and combined authorities, largely administered by Leeds City Council. Hello, everyone at Leeds City Council. Hello. I'm going to look through your report. So let's have a look at what this report says. I'm conscious that SLC are kind of like a low-level competitor to me and my various consultancy guises, but let's see. But SLC, this is not me just dissing you. Let's see what you've got to say. I've not actually read through this report in detail, although I know what its general outcomes are. So let's have a look, shall we? Let's have a look through this report. So they're going to talk about the problem definition. Just before we do that, though, I just want to Control F, released capacity. No measure of it. Okay. Capacity. Okay, capacity mentioned a fair bit. Fine. Right. Yeah. My implication here is I don't think SLC Rail have understood or looked at release capacity in any way. So if I look for the word release, two mentions. Release of a site for development and to release capacity on the East Coast Main Line, the phased reopening of the mothball leaves sunlight and its relation to the Leamside line up in the north. So it's nothing to do with the rest of the network. I'm going to give them... We're going to have a proper look through. I'm not convinced SLC have had a look at the broader picture in terms of what capacity release. But let's have a look there. So problem definition. So problem definition... methodology, upgrade costs, so they do some costing, which I won't dwell on in the report because there's a graphic that they do later. Service development options, fine. Issues common to options, fine. So north end of Sheffield Station is a key constraint. Leeds station capacity, key constraint. Impact of HS2 East on Midland Mainline services, yes, obviously. So, right, let us get stuck in. So there's an executive summary, which we're going to ignore. Because we always do ignore the executive summary because it's not what we need to look at. So background, this is the IRP, potential journey time benefits delivered by scheme, fine. Connectivity gap north of Sheffield, there's the gap there. So they're kind of just talking about the north of Sheffield gap, fine. The brief, the overarching aim of this study is to identify a solution to increase capacity and connectivity between Birmingham, the East Midlands, and Sheffield, Leeds, York, and the North East, together with high-level indicative costs for the upgrades. In particular, the work will reflect impact of IRP on journeys from the West Midlands to the North East corridor. The aspirations of NPR to improve journeys between Sheffield and Leeds, which critically are not included within the IRP recommendations, absolutely. The impact of HS2 services on the existing Midland mainline services. So that's slight release capacity relationship. I'm not in full screen mode, am I? There we are. That's a slight hinting at release capacity connectivity, but it's just, yeah, I don't know. So here's the existing long distance services, fine. Just looking at what those services currently look like, fine. Services that appear as dotted lines are those that have not been fully reinstated post-COVID. Yeah, it's worth pointing out. Several missing services there that you'll all see that don't run post-COVID. Anyway, well, it's not really such a thing as post-COVID, but you know what I mean. So, weaknesses, connectivity gaps, fine. Poor frequency from Birmingham to Leeds. The differential in journey times between the routing of cross-country services between Leeds and Doncaster, via Leeds and via Doncaster. Always get the via Doncaster one, unless you're going to Leeds, because the via Leeds one is so slow and it just feels like it takes ages. Poor frequency of fast services between Sheffield and Leeds. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they're not fast at all. Fine. Certainly those are problems. So they're using generalized journey time here. So fine. The trouble is this suspiciously looks like a focus on generalized journey time. But it's not looking at generalized journey time from small station through the main connection and then onto another small station. It's just looking at center to center generalized journey time, which is a shortcoming of any analysis. Secondary objectives to increase seat capacity, but that's just increasing seat capacity on these major hub connections. This is the shortcoming in this report. This is the shortcoming in this report. Fundamental shortcoming, as with so many analysis of anything to do with HS2, it omits understanding the whole point of what HS2 is for, which is alleviating constrained capacity in the existing network to allow more suburban services, which is and this area particularly is absolutely critical. So Okay, so there's previous studies referring to the previous studies done. Okay, fine. Similar ground. And bear in mind, this isn't necessarily a criticism of SLC. They had a brief. They've delivered to that brief. But the problem with HS2 East's specification here, their brief, is that they've not talked about understanding release capacity. They've not told SLC to look at release capacity. Although SLC should really have, consultants. We're not just, the whole point of consultancy is that we don't just do the job we're paid for. We do a bit more than that. And we do the hard thinking that the client can't afford to do. Route section analysis, infrastructure analysis, service pattern analysis. Okay, I'm just working my way through. Let's have a look. So they're showing various routes. They've got, if I zoom in, you can see this is the HS2 NPR proposal. So these Midlands Parkway, there's the route up to Piccadilly, and the horrible, stupid, disgusting triangle mess they're making at Piccadilly. Going up to Leeds, that's they're ignoring Bradford, of course. Bradford is ignored entirely. And then just looking at all the other bits and pieces here. So, northern stuff, cross country, East Coast mainline, all the other bits of service. And these black lines are these route upgrade options that are going to be considered. So there's the Nottingham to Newark one, which we've heard that the government are actually considering as well. Airwash Valley. Old Road around the back of Sheffield there. There's just various kind of options being put forwards. That's some of the HS2's routing up there, as well as various kind of alternatives up here. So there's bits and pieces going on. There's some old former railways they're even looking at thinking about there. So there's some... That's kind of discussing what the model is, what their study area is. Yes, okay, fine. So... And here we get into the kind of, there's the various kind of sections, that's kind of the way they're doing the modelling. Fine. This is all kind of very detailed. Infrastructure analysis, so they're looking at the different patterns. But again, look, there's this Atkins Strategic Alternatives report produced for DFT ages ago. As part of the evidence base for RRP, it gives us a future East Coast mainline service pattern following proposed RRP upgrade of that route. Again, sacrificing local services. Sacrificing all of the connections to... sacrificing trains through Grantham, sacrificing trains through Newark, lots of sacrificing of services, making the service worse for local stations. That's what it's all about. That's what the RP was all about. Missing the point spectacularly. So, so they're defining route sections. They look at upgrade costs. Okay, we're going to just skip through costs. So, service development options. We kind of forget costs. Okay, so that's kind of okay. Again, issues common to options. Yes, well, we know that we've got North End of Sheffield. We know that stuff. Fine. Leeds station capacity. Fine. Yes, it's all this discussion about the long distance services, but very little, if any. Okay, so impact on Midland Mainline services. But even in this, the discussion is the impact on the existing intercity services. Where is the consideration of the suburban services, of the rural, the local services, even some of the regional services, kind of the regional stopping services? It's just it's lacking. It's severely lacking. So this is not. I'm sorry, this report doesn't cut it. I know there's a lot of people got very excited about this in HS2 East partnership. I am just, this is not. It's not cutting it. It's not going into the detail that it needs to. You can't do an analysis to justify some of this. And yes, some of this stuff you could say could be harnessed better. It doesn't mean that all the analysis is duff. You might still come out with some similar proposals. But any analysis that excludes looking at the existing the existing services and an expansion of those existing services, the suburban networks, any expansion that ignores the suburban networks particularly is an incomplete analysis. There's a lot of people saying, well, the assumption is that all that intermediate connectivity is just going to be delivered by cars. Yeah, we've seen how that goes badly, because it's the suburban services that are the ones that we need to be massively increasing, because those are the ones that get people out of their cars. To emulate London, to emulate the transport success of London, you need to have suburban rail networks. You need to have suburban high-capacity networks, of which there are railway networks in each of these cities that you could be relying on. But to do that, you need to stop mixing those railway lines with long-distance services. And this report doesn't appear to look at that at all, in any way whatsoever. So there's loads of detail here that you can go and download. You can go and find it, dig through. I'm not going to go through all of it. Let's flip back to the point. So this report, it's kind of the similar. Its options that it's looking at are pretty similar to those kind of talked about in the previous. So let's just very quickly look at the options. So there is, let's see, we've got delivering the missing gap. So they're talking about these two options here, which is plugging the gap between Sheffield and Leeds. It's kind of using the HS2 alignment mostly, apart from this bit. They're kind of jumping off the alignment here, or a classic network upgrade. And then most of the rest of it is classic network, so that's fine. 2A2B, whatever. 2C, 2D, increment with the Airwash Valley, so you can see Airwash Valley, HS2 alignment or non-HS2 alignment, so that's the increments. That's including an upgrade on the Airwash Valley from East Midlands Interchange, so that's showing the kind of that thing. So you can see this report has been written very much in the idea of like complementing what government says, because then maybe everyone will feel all happy and magical. But yeah, I'm sorry. Problems, and this is showing dodging Sheffield Centre to avoid significant expenditure at the northern end of Sheffield. You can't avoid that expenditure, or you do avoid that expenditure by sending the high-speed services through Meadowhall, and then instead have a very good S-Bahn network. It's a done thing in lots of parts of the world. S-Bahn network combined with hub stations, they work. And then via Newark, there's this little sort of kind of that's existing railway really that they're showing there, actually, possibly with slight upgrades to existing infrastructure. I guess that's what government's going to propose as well. So you see there's lots of parallels between this and the government, and then they talk also about Leamside Line, which is to my mind is a weirdly outside of scope and ought not to be included in here. It doesn't make any sense. So they're proposing kind of all the same stuff that causes all the same problems, which is worse local and urban services. That's what's being proposed here. Worse local and urban services. That's the whole point. Just absolutely hopeless. Really not good. Lots of chat. Yeah, do send in all right, okay. Chuck your questions in and I'll answer them after the next after the usual bits and pieces. So the last thing to say about this before I'm closing in on the end of time very rapidly. There's two things. Firstly, costs. So they're saying that the eastern leg would have, or kind of in today's money, would now cost, the original eastern leg would cost 30.8 billion. And they're saying that their proposals, 15.2 plus 8.2, so these two together, gives you a saving of, or whatever that is, that's 8.2, that's 15.4, 23.4, so that's brackets 23.4, which gives you a 7.4 billion saving. Big whoop. That's nothing. What is being lost? An enormous amount is being lost. I know this is saying, well, this is all you're going to get. You're not going to get anything. No. If we're just talking about a trivial 7.4 billion pound saving, do the full plan. Anyway, I can understand why this has happened. I'm not being too. I'm not really angry. I'm not really pointing my anger at HS2 East. I understand why they're doing this politically, but it's a swing and a miss in terms of what it actually provides. This doesn't provide the benefits that the Eastern Leg provided. The whole point is that you don't have that mixture. We're creating an even more complicated railway network than we had before. The whole point is to decomplicate our network, to make the rail network less complicated. And the whole point of this is that you get this phasing. So they're talking about, like, okay, so you get the electrification in the mid-2030s, which is just so unambitious. That's included within the IRP, fine, whatever. Late 2030, early 2040s, you get the Leeds bit, costs 4.1 billion, great. And then, weirdly, also costing 4.1 billion. Is that actually right, or is it a typo? Yeah, 8.2. It's 8.2. Yeah, another 4.1 billion. If I was a consultant, I would actively seek to I'd make one of those 4.0 and one of them 4.2, because otherwise it looks like a typo. You've got to do clever things like that as a consultant, because that's too weird a coincidence. I definitely tweak the dial to change a spreadsheet and make sure those numbers were different. Anyway, the Nottingham to Newark upgrade thing. Also Leamside in here. It's just weird to include Leamside. It's just a different thing. So that's just saying that by the late 2040s, so by by the middle of the century, you might get what the Eastern leg would have delivered, except that you don't. You get a lot less than the Eastern leg delivered, which is indicative to me of why you deliver the Eastern leg, because you get so much more quickly. It just really, this emphasizes why the Eastern leg is so much better. Oh, anyway, right. I'm going to get rid of my face and say, everyone, I don't have a closing remark. I'll answer some questions at the end. I'm somewhat irate. So, audio only. Thank you for listening to this in audio only format. Thanks to the 167 people listening to this live as well. Good grief. Patreon.com/GarethDennis to support this happening more, and GarethDennis.co.uk/Discord for the chat to continue on and on and on. GarethDennis.co.uk/merch. I need to round up the money spent on the trans support T, and then send that money to to York LGBT Forum. I will post that on the Twitter account. I'll go follow the Railnetter Twitter account if you don't already. PayPal.me/GarethDennis for loose change and abuse. Next week, it's an interesting one actually. Episode 178. How do you build a modern train simulator game? With Joseph Rogers and Matt Pedleston, from Dovetail Games are joining us. That should be fun. Joseph and Matt joining us to talk about train simulators. How do these work? How do modern train simulators work? I'm interested. We're going to find out. I asked lots of questions about how you do the kind of the infrastructure as well, because obviously it's easy to design it to make a train simulatable, and I'm sure we'll talk a bit about that. But this should be fun. Train sim chat, that should be interesting. Also, talking about simulators, in a matter of 1 hour, you can join me returning to Amphitrus, where we're going to be building a new railway station for Thapst. If that means nothing to you, then I can't help you. But if you are interested by all of the words I just said, then come and join me in an hour, where we are going to be doing some station construction and arguably getting close to finishing the upgrade of the East Coast Main Line, which is very, very exciting. Yes, indeed. Everyone, oh my goodness me. Hello, I managed to have that just about in an hour. Unhappy Scurry is Unhappy Skirl. Forgive me. Have you seen the All Ireland Irish Rail Review? Yes, I have. It will be a future episode. I'm pestering someone to join me in the chat. Join me for an episode to talk through that, because I think we need to have some Irish representation. Actually, there are other Irish rail nerds. Deirdre, if you're listening, there are other Irish rail nerds out there who might want to join and talk about that one as well. Gareth is saying the person that measured the height of Mount Everest calculated 28,000 feet exactly, but published 28,002 to make it not look like an estimation. Yes, numbers are there to be played with. Anyway, the Shin branding has been very effective. If Curzon Street was called Birmingham Express, it might look odd that there's no Sheffield Leeds Express. Well, indeed, yeah. Anyway, there's lots of discussion going on here. There's lots of people saying, yeah, lots and lots of. There's all sorts of discussion going on. I think I might park it there. The All Ireland. Ina is saying the All Ireland Irish Rail Review is seriously hating on Omagh and Enniskillen. Oh yeah, crikey. Okay, yeah. This is why I need the representation. I cannot satisfyingly go through that document. I need a friend. There's someone who tweeted about it online. I want to grab, but feel free, if you know them, pester them, and then we can make it happen. Anyway, right. Enough of me waffling. Everyone, it's been an absolute pleasure. I will see you next week, or I will see you in an hour. In any case, cheerio.